Unfortunately, in today's world, there's a lot of pressure to fit into society's unrealistic norms and extremely high standards. The pressure to fit into these unrealistic norms and high standards can be extremely suffocating. The pressure to be all funny, beautiful, smart, fit, talented, and more is not only impossible to achieve, but is an extremely toxic environment to grow up and live in. These unrealistic norms and these extremely high standards are impossible to achieve because there are double standards for everything in society. For example, you can't be skinny without being called anorexic, and you can't have a little bit of stomach fat without being told you should go on a diet. There are unrealistic standards of what a woman should look and behave like, unrealistic norms of what a man should be like, and pressuring stereotypes of how a man should act. Women are victims of media pressures through the advertisements they play on TV, supermodels on the cover of magazines, and as well as victims of the pressure from those around them to look a certain way and act a certain way. According to Girl Guides of Canada, these pressures from society affect 59% of girls who feel the pressure to conform to these unrealistic standards of what it means to be a girl. The pressure from society for women to be perfect is not only the stupidest thing I've heard in my entire life because it's just as impossible as changing the past, it is also an extremely unhealthy environment for young girls to grow up in. The double standards of how girls are supposed to act and dress affects many girls. Women are told from young ages that they are supposed to dress a certain way and act a certain way. Even at schools, we're taught to wear shorts that reach our fingertips and not any shorter, or else it'll be a distraction. Oh, my shoulders, sorry. That must have been such a distraction. Girls are also told by parents and teachers that girls don't swear because it's just not ladylike. But once we grow up, we are faced with complete opposite rules. We are taught by friends and peers that the only way to get attention is to dress a certain way, and to be cool, we have to swear. These double standards can be very confusing for young girls. 56% of girls agree that they get mixed messages on how they are supposed to act and behave, dress, and look. There is no right definition of what a woman is. The reality is that not all women are perfect, innocent beings like Lucy Manette from A Tale of Two Cities. Women can also be like Lady Macbeth, who was powerful and evil from Shakespeare's play Macbeth. Being pressured to try to fit into these unrealistic social expectations can affect you negatively. According to Girl Guides of Canada, 55% of girls reported that trying to meet social expectations on how to look or act has negatively impacted their self-esteem. Women are not the only victims of unreasonable, unrealistic standards of society, so are men. There is an unrealistic norm of what a man should be like. Society says that men should be in relationships, should be sexually active, should be the breadwinner of the family if they want to be called a real man. Holden Caulfield in The Catcher in the Rye feels this pressure of becoming a man throughout the novel. Holden feels the pressure from his friends and peers to be in relationships and to be sexually active. He acts on this pressure when he hires a hooker, and this overall leads to a negative outcome. Pressuring young boys to think this way can cause extreme emotional damage and can lead to tragic events. According to Independent UK, 71% of men feel pressure to be in a relationship. The pressure from society forcing these unrealistic norms on these young boys is not right and is an unfair environment for these young boys to grow up thinking that this is the norm. Men also feel as if they are not good enough for a significant other because they don't fit the ideal qualities of what society says they should fit in. It may pressure them to change who they are, just like Sidney Carton in A Tale of Two Cities changing himself to become more like Charles Darnay because Charles fits the qualities of what society says is a real man. 4 out of 10 males feel they lack the qualities and abilities of what partners look for. Men are also faced with the pressure of the unreasonable norm that they need to be the main provider of the household. According to the Com, 42% of men said they felt pressured to be the main breadwinner of the household. Just like in Shakespeare's play Macbeth, Macbeth feels pressure from his wife, Lady Macbeth, to be some sort of breadwinner by killing Duncan so their family can have power. Boys are also taught from a young age that real men are physically strong, aggressive, and dominant. It is not okay to be telling young boys that the only emotion they can feel is aggression. This can be extremely emotionally damaging, and instead of teaching them how to deal with their emotions, they are taught the unhealthy habit of holding it in. According to the Com, suicide is now the biggest cause of death in men aged 20 to 49 in England and Wales, accounting for 78% of all suicides in the UK. This can be linked with the pressure men face to be the ideal man in society's eyes. Men are also faced with the pressure to try to live up to how men are portrayed in the media. The men portrayed in the media are not actual representations of real men, but it can cause men to conform to the stereotype. According to the Com, 61% of men agree that men are stereotyped in the media. Men should not feel pressure to be manly and violent because of how the media stereotypes them. It is unfair, it is completely unfair for young boys to grow up in this unhealthy environment. We need to realize that society isn't just a random group of people who are making up these unrealistic norms and high standards. We make up society. We all need to see each other as real human beings who have feelings and who are not perfect. We are not the women you see in Victoria's Secret campaigns, and men are not the ones you see in front of men's health magazines. We ourselves also need to realize that we cannot conform to these unrealistic norms and extremely high standards because it's just not possible. We will never fit the idea of perfection because it's different for everyone, and the sooner we realize that, we can release the pressure off of ourselves and others.